All right, now let's take a look at serving results off the search appliance. Up until now, we've set up the initial network configuration with a fixed IP address, DNS servers, plugged the box into the network in the data center, turned it on, and we set up crawling in our previous tutorial so that we can crawl documents off a web server and include their metadata. Now let's take a look at how we can create different user experiences for different user groups. And this can include modifying the look and feel or the output that's displayed, or we can modify the behavior, some of the functions that are displayed on the search page. To begin, different user groups may want to have different experiences, and you can provide them using what we call front ends. In the examples here, we see a front end on the left, which has been modified. It's got a logo. There's some additional functions here we haven't looked at yet called related queries, and there's some key matches here. These are promoted links. And there's a drop-down for selecting a subset of the index to look at. Also modified the text on the search box. These are types of some of the look and feel changes that we can make and some of the function changes we can make. On the right, there's a page that's served off of something different than the search appliance. This is a search page that is hosted on a web portal. It sits in between as a proxy application between your users and the search appliance. It doesn't serve results directly right off the box on port 80. If we go to our search appliance here, this is serving directly off the box right on the standard search page on port 80. Okay? We just point the user's browser to a search page. This is the standard search page you get. Oops. And we get results. It's got the Google logo. It's got the standard look and feel. Blue bar, Google search for the text on the search button. Here's an example of the next step that a company might take. Once you get the search appliance, point your browsers to the user port 80. Well, you can modify the look and feel of that search page with the company logo. You can change the bars color here to match your own corporate look and feel. We've turned on a drop-down box to select certain subsets of the index to search from. Modified the search button's text, but the search results still look the same. It's still very, you can tell it's very generic, and it's, the search results are coming directly off a search appliance. Next step might be to jazz it up a little bit and provide some more functionality to it. There's some additional functionality here. More links have been built up dynamically. These are groups of related links. This is called dynamic clustering. But you can see there's also additional HTML functionality here. This may be getting served off of a proxy application that's sitting in between the users and the search appliance. But you can see the progression that's occurring here. There's a little bit more functionality being added. If you want another example, here's possibly the next step in the progression. The Brookings Institute is a social science or a political science think tank, and you can perform lookups for articles. They publish a host of articles, and here's the search page that comes back. Now, here are the search results, and this is a proxy application again. See here you got these links to drop downs. We've got dynamic navigation that's set up here. We'll look at this as a feature in a couple of modules later. Here's a drop-down for potential metadata filtering. Okay, this may be metadata fields that are associated with the documents. Remember, we used the in-meta operator on when we were covering crawling. And that's rather crude for a user to be expected to enter in meta colon and then product equals say iPod. That's kind of prohibitive for your users. So you just have them enter in a search term and provide a drop down here for selecting the meta tag you want to choose values off of. All right, now let's take a look. To set up front ends, front ends control two things. They control the look and feel, which is generated when you convert from raw data results to HTML. And we'll see what that looks like in a minute. We use something called a proxy style sheet. It's an XSLT style sheet. There's an XSLT server on the search appliance. What the search appliance does is generate raw XML results. and that raw XML looks like this. Let's take a look. I'll take this proxy style sheet off of the search page when it's returning results. We're going to get introduced to these. These are called search parameters. Here we're going to specify, there's two parameters that are going to govern the front end. One of them is called the client parameter. That defines a lot of its functionality. And then there's the proxy style sheet parameter, which determines that style sheet that gets placed on the results. If we take this proxy style sheet parameter out of the search request, then the search appliance receives this URL request here. Doesn't have a proxy style sheet parameter in it, so it doesn't apply the style sheet and only returns XML raw results. Here are the parameters that were sent in during the regular search request. Here are the results coming back. We've got approximately 13 results. Here's result number 1. Here's its URL. Here's its snippet. I expect to see its title here somewhere. Here it is, under the T tag. Now if I reapply the style sheet, let's just go back. If you do include the style sheet, then you get the XSLT gets applied, converts from the search appliance converts it from XML to HTML. This is useful when you're going to build your own application. It sits in between the users and the GSA. You would probably send out this search request without the proxy style sheet parameter and get back XML, and then parse the XML into and embed it into your search page. Similar to the way Apple's done this here. They've built their own, this is their own HTML page here, and they're getting the search results from the GSA, but that's what they've done is they've sent a search request, got XML back, and then ran a parser on the XML and generated their own HTML page here. Another example of a company that's built their own HTML page. Let's go to their own web portal. Let's go to Asset Buyer. If you run a search for tractor, what they do is they have, it's a retail reselling site where they collect all types of people that want to sell, similar to an eBay, people that want to sell goods that are used or new, and then they can come and list them here. The search results are displayed here, but notice that there's a lot of more work going into displaying the results, so they're not coming directly off the search appliance. Here's dynamic navigation on the left, but they've got images installed in here. They've got links to other follow-up, such as maybe a shopping cart or a purchasing e-commerce website. So we have two parameters, the proxy style sheet, which we talked about right here. That governs the look and feel with the style sheet. And then the client parameter, which determines the front end. When you add a front end to search appliance, you'll get a client as well as a proxy style sheet component. You could use the same proxy style sheet. The reason we separated these parameters, we might want to use the same proxy style sheet for all your user groups, all the different front ends, and just define different functionality on the client parameter. And we can do that. So let's go and show how to set this up. So on the serving tab, here's where we get our serving functionality, and front ends are listed here. There's the default front end, and when we were running searches, that's what we were using. So you see here we go to client equals default front end. Now we want to add a different user group. All we do is give it a name, like maybe sales. Click create new front end, and then edit it. Under here we'll see that there's several tabs across the top for functionality. And the first one is the output format. This is a tab that governs the style sheet and all of its settings. There's a WYSIWYG editor that's available for editing some of the properties of the style sheet. It's easy to use interface. It doesn't require you to understand XSLT code. So I click on global attributes. I could specify a different logo here. Like I could specify an HTTP image on an Athens web server. I can specify how large a size for it, the font size on the page, a header, a footer, top of the page. Now these are simple things to change, right? And there's a footer. You can turn on some additional functionality here. We're going to go ahead and bypass some of this. And I can go to the search box. I can change things like the the length of characters for the search box, the button, whether I use Google search. Let's just change this to sales search. So we'll see the difference physically, know what we're dealing with. I could add a drop down for selecting a different subset on the index called a collection. We'll talk about collections later. I could choose to view secure search results or just the defaults. I'll also, I could check on the query suggestions. This will be for showing me text as I type from previous searches that were run by other users. So that gives us suggestions or hints to the users. And what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and turn this on. Then there's also the search results page. And this focuses in on the search results that get displayed. And you can you can change this to a gray bar. You could turn on dynamic results clustering. Search terms that the user looks up, like credit card, and then finds text near that in the content of the documents. And if you get over 1,000 results back, we'll display groupings of those based on other keywords that are found around credit card, such as credit card application, or credit card deposits, or credit card refunds. And those would appear as categories, and the user clicks on those search results, clicks on that link, and would only see results for that, those hits. I'm going to keep that on the side. Let's see what else. I could turn on, I could take the URL off, I could turn it back on, I can take the size of the document, take that out. I could turn off the cache link if I don't want users to be able to see the documents directly on the search page, from the GSA's index. And I'll save that page. Now what I'm doing is I'm making changes to the XSLT style sheet, and that only affects the rendering and what functions and features might be turned on at the style sheet level. You could also edit the underlying XSLT style sheet code here, and you can make changes that will affect the XSLT. You could download the XSLT, and let's see here, there's an export that let's see, where's the export link here? That's at the bottom. Here you can export the XSLT, you can preview it, you can make changes directly in it, or you can save it to file and put it in your own XSLT editor, and then you can import it back in. Now when you make changes to the XSLT style sheet, it's going to, these are not supported features, so, because you could make literally any change to this as you want. I'm going to search for, let's see, I'm going to search for show meta tags. I'm going to turn on meta tags because we didn't see metadata before. We want to make sure we can see it this time. I'm going to save that. Now when I save this, when I make changes to the directly to the XSLT style sheet, I'll lose the ability to use the page layout helper, like right here. Now to show search results with this other, using this other style sheet and this other front end, now I'm modifying some of the, I haven't modified some of the front end functionality here on the other tabs yet, and that's governed by the client parameter. The output format's only governed by the style sheet. So I could go to my search page and change just the style sheet parameter and change it to sales. Okay, here's my new logo image. Here's my new text on my search box. Let's see, I do not see the cache link anymore. I do not see the size of the document. What else? If I type in, let's go back to health here. Now, what I'm seeing as I type along here, I also included query suggest, but I don't see the query suggestions showing up here yet. And that can be that the process that does the query suggestion update hasn't been actually run recently, or so I may have to wait a few minutes for this to show up. When the query suggestions are working, I'll see green text here. Right now what I see is just text. These are just previous search results or search requests that were run in this box that are shown by the browser directly. Okay, this is the browser just being smart enough to know, hey, I saw this search box before, and last time I saw this, some other people entered in these values here. Okay, it's not the most recent search requests that have been stored on the GSA, and that can be accumulated from other users using the same front end. Here was the query suggestion. Let's show a little bit more here. Here's what it looks like when it's functioning properly, the green text. So these are features that we want to cover in the front end that are common to every customer. Every customer is going to want to turn on query suggestions. Every customer is going to want to turn on the other features that we look at in this section, like key matches. And you can also get an interface to this query suggestions. Here you can specify which front end it's going to apply to. You can export the query lists that have been built up over time. You can import your own suggestions list if you want, because sometimes, now this is based on what you're going to see coming to the top in query suggest are the most frequently used search terms. When you make changes to the style sheet, there is another parameter that you must enter in, and I had to cover this at some time, now is as good a time as any, called proxy reload equals 1. This says when there's changes to the style sheet, make sure you get the latest, the style sheet changes get put into the style sheet engine when you make changes, but the search appliance does not always go back and get the latest changes. The browser doesn't always go and get the latest proxy style sheet changes. You have to use this parameter in development stages when you want to make sure you get those changes reflected. You can use this API here, the suggest API, to also scrub that list. That API can be useful if you're building your own application as a proxy application off a web portal. Just rounding up with the XSLT, I also showed how to show meta tags by turning that feature on. There's another, that's a value inside the style sheet we turned on. There's another URL search parameter that we have to enter in called getFields equals star. This is a request that says now get the meta tags, the metadata associated with each document, and return that as well. So we didn't see that displayed by default. If I search for sloth, and these documents have metadata associated with them, but we didn't see anything displayed here. Okay, remember from our previous example, if I follow this link and I do a view source, here are meta tags associated with this. Writer is equal to coward. Okay. And if I go to a different document, view source, lots of meta tags. But I didn't see any of the data inside the search results. That may be useful during development. That may be, users may want to see that even when they run search requests. So we've turned that feature on in the style sheet. Why didn't we see it here? Well, if we look at the underlying XML code that's being sent back, we'll see that those meta tag fields are not even being returned in the search result data. Move the proxy style sheet parameter. We look in the underlying XML code, and we see here's result number 1. We see the title. We see the snippet, but we don't see any MT tags, which are the meta tag data. Let's also send another request search parameter that says get me those fields from the index. Get fields equals star. Now when I get search results, here's one meta tag, writer, coward. For another search result, a bunch of meta tags. Now I turn the proxy style sheet back on. I include proxy style sheet equals sales. Now I get back HTML search results, and the meta tag data is displayed, and we're using the standard style sheet display method, which is just showing the names and the values of the meta tags. If you wanted to modify this, you could. You can fancy this up. Let's look at asset buyer. Let's see what they did with the meta. Here's what they did with meta tag data. Condition used, sales type, sale type classified, location Thomasville, North Carolina. We support XSLT 2.0 and XPath 2.0. So if you're familiar with XSLT, now if you want to modify the XSLT code, you're going to want to get somebody who's familiar with XSLT. It's a considerably long document. If you're used to XSLT, it's not that complicated. It's pretty linear in fashion, but you have to know how to jump around into the various areas of the XSLT style sheet to make the changes. Other examples of what you can do with the XSLT style sheet, here's an example of somebody who's added images into the XSLT. What they've done is they found the results processing section of the XSLT and they've added a meta tag to each document that had a URL to this image, and they just told the style sheet to make a GET request to the image and include that in the search results. Other useful things that you could do. You could use a file name from the U tag as opposed to the T tag for the link. You could change SMB file system URLs to UNC paths so that when a user, if we search content off a file server, those SMB URLs come back and get included in the search results and are put behind the links. Well, when the user clicks on the link, if they're UNC encoded, then the browser will attempt to upload the file, like a Word document, a PDF, or a PPT. There's a link here to some snippets that can be modified. Now let's talk about some additional features you want. So we've covered Query Suggest, which is a very useful feature. We've talked about modifying the style sheet to generate different results. We've shown you how to include the metadata. These are all very common features that every customer is going to want to use. Key matches is another one. We've seen with Google.com how links are promoted. And let's go there to Google.com real quick. Now you search for baseball bats. These are what we call promotional links in Google.com. They are links that people paid for to have appear at the top of a search result when this is the search request. Right? There's the term, the lookup term, baseball bats. Here's a matching URL to go to. Here's another matching URL. They're placed at the top of the results. And there are additional search results, what we call the algorithmic results, showing up in the bottom. Now, it's also a very common feature to want to set this up in your own website. In Google's intranet page called MoMA, we use key matches to promote links to the top for various things like HR policies. Here's an example of the Discover website. If you type in credit card, here's a link that appears at the very top. When a user ran a search for credit card, this is their key match that they promoted to the very top of the search request. So users are probably interested in this is an e-commerce site, so they're somewhat of an e-commerce site. This is for consumers, and they want to promote their credit card and how to apply for it. So if you click on a link, it takes you directly to that page. How do we set up key matches? In the search appliance, by default, they're going to be displayed with the blue box here. We're going to have key match as the default text, and we go to the key match tab, and all we do is enter in the search term and what type of match it's going to be, whether it's going to be a keyword match, a phrase match, or an exact match. A keyword match says look for any words in this search term, apple and pie. Those words have to appear somewhere in the search term, in the search the query, but they can be in any order and they can be separated by anything else. If it's a phrase match, then the term apple pie has to appear in there either in the beginning, the middle, or the end, but it cannot have words in between them. An exact match says that only apple pie is being searched. There's no other terms before or after or in between it. Here's the title for the match and the URL for the link. We can import this with CSV files, so you can distribute a spreadsheet to your various groups and ask them, the HR group, the sales group, the engineering group, which links do you want to promote to the top for your various search terms, then fill it in the spreadsheet and then import it in the GSA and you're done. It's settable for up to 50 key matches. Now, in reality, you're not going to want to have more than 3 key matches per search term lookup, because otherwise you're just going to be bogging down your users. You're going to be loading up your search page with just key match results, and users won't see the algorithmic search results. Let's see how to set it up. We'll go to front ends. We'll create a new one called, let's call this key match, or engineering. Let's say engineering group. Okay, so we've created a new front end that only the key matches will only appear on this front end. And we'll go to key match. We'll type in the search term lookup as apple pie. We'll make it a phrase match. And type in recipes for apple pie. And a link. And this could be to a link in your index or a link out of your index. It doesn't matter. One would think that it's pointing to a document that's already been in your index. So here's one. And I'll save the results. Here's where you could have saved new matches. When they're saved, they're displayed here. You can click on, there's a link here to edit them up here, and then you can modify them. Okay, let's just go back to view matches. You could also import and export matches. Now I'll go to the search page. Now I defined this on the front end called eng. If I run a search for apple pie here on the other front end, all I get are algorithmic search results. If I change the front end up here to eng on the style sheet and the client parameter, now I have to also change the client parameter because this is functionality on another tab besides output format. Here's my algorithmic search results, and here's my key match result. I click on this link, it'll take me directly to that page. This text can be modified, but you'll have to do that inside the XSLT style sheet using the editor. There's not a WYSIWYG entry for it. There's other behavior across the front end's configuration page. For related queries, I'm not going to go into this because there's a better way to do this. It's called through query expansion. It's a way to do synonym lookups. Related queries are not really synonym lookups. You give a search term and then you can have a related query page comes up. There was an example of it. We didn't explain it, but here's what it looks like. This is what a related query looks like. If you enter in the term health, you might also want to have users look up on-site doctors in your corporation. So that this link with a suggestion comes up at the top, and they click on that, and it runs another search with on-site doctors. But there's a better way to do that. Query expansion will do it behind the scenes with a synonym lookup, and it will return the results already for the users. There's also filters that are available at a front end. You can determine which languages you look up, including or excluding certain languages. You can specify file types that you want to include, such as image, BMP, I mean, any type of file. You know, you just use the three-letter acronyms here. The meta tag filters, you can specify which meta tag values. And remember, this is think about what it's going to look like for user experience. The users would only return results behind this search request with meta tag values specified by you. It might be more effective to put a drop-down list for your types of meta tags and the values and let your users select those. But if you want to hard code that behind the front end, you can. We also have remove URLs, so documents that you want to have removed immediately from display. You can put them here. So if you don't want the GSA link to appear before, and you want to do this before it gets recrawled or on the next recrawl phase, you know, the GSA's index doesn't necessarily remove documents right away from the index, so you can stop displaying them to users right away. If you've sold off a section of your company or there's a litigation lawsuit that's been opened up on a product, you can go in and enter these values. Onebox modules are also a very useful feature, and this is where you add them to the front ends. Let's take a look at what a Onebox looks like. Here's Reuters. Some data changes so quickly that you don't want to index it because by the time you index it, it's going to be out of date. Stock symbol ticker symbol lookups is one. So on the Reuters, which is a financial website, they have a lot of data from specific stock symbol lookups that gets displayed using what we call a one-box module. It can display graphical data, visual data, image data, and it's a snapshot. It's usually displayed right at the top of your search results. It's very high value to your users, and it's based on the search term or a trigger that we call that they ran. So if you run a search for ASDF, it doesn't really match to a stock symbol lookup. In fact, we didn't even get any search results either. Maybe hot dog. Let's see here. I have no idea what's going to come up. Okay, so we've got some search results, but no one-box results because that wasn't a 3 or 4 letter stock symbol. Let's see, Apple X. Let's see if that comes up. That's a 4-letter acronym, but it didn't match to any stock symbol lookup, so it wasn't included. Now, we've seen one-box modules before on Google.com. We just haven't, let's see if we got one here. Here's Google. If I type in weather, weather changes very quickly. So here's a one-box module for consumers that just shows weather in a local area. And it could be that you enter in the zip code, and this is your trigger term. Keyword is weather. 94306 is a regular expression of a 5-digit zip code. So we'll make a, what happens is making not a search on the index, it's going out to a web service. GSA is sending out a GET request in real time at search time to a web service of some kind and doing a lookup and getting those results back in real time, not including them in the index, but just displaying them in search results. Other examples of companies that have done this, let's go to the Royal Bank of Australia. This bank has, they have investors coming and searching for various types of terms. It could you enter in credit, and there's a one box that does a dictionary lookup, and these dictionary lookups change, periodically and on a frequent basis. So they've decided to build a one box module around it. You could also enter in the name of one of their senior executives, and you'll get their biography and all the latest links on them, a picture of them. If their officers change, then that's displayed in real time. Another one is the Arizona State University has a lookup for courses. So if you want to type in a quick lookup on a course, just type in the course name. It appears as one box with links to more information. Makes a good alternative for database data as well. So what we've done is we've shown you how to build different user experiences using front ends. You can modify the XSLT style sheet, or you can use the page layout helper to modify the XSLT style sheet, or you can render your own, you can generate raw XML from the search appliance by removing the proxy style sheet parameter, building a proxy application between the users and the search appliance, and display results inside of a portal. So there's a accompanying lab exercise for this module. There's also the next module that you would go on to is feeding data into the search appliance, and we encourage you to do that or look at more documentation.